Hey guys, welcome back to Pharaoh Iron & Customs. Today, I haven't got my parts to put the door back on the car yet, so I went ahead and pulled the old 8.8 disc brake rear end that we're going to put underneath the car out. What I have to do with this axle is it needs to be narrowed down. I think it's like 2 7/8. I need to look for sure. Hang on. Sorry that wasn't the ADHD. I promise that was Maggie stealing a pen. And she's still playing with stuff. So, what you have on an Explorer, and I found this out afterwards, but still finding a Mustang rear end would be extraordinarily hard. But on an Explorer 8.8, the right side axle is 2 7/8 shorter than the left side axle. So what we're doing is we're going to take and strip down the housing and get it ready for to put underneath the car, and cut all the brackets off and get it taken apart so we can cut this axle down 2 7/8 inches and weld it back together. And I already have a new right side axle, so we're gonna get busy doing this. Alright guys, not totally surprising, I had to beat the rotors off of it. They were locked up to the emergency brakes on this Explorer. The emergency brakes are, it's Drummond hat, and the emergency brakes inside the rotor. So I'm going to keep tearing this thing down. Next thing to do is pull the cover off, and then I'll show you how to take the C-clips out. I mean, if you've never done that before, so hang on. Alright guys, I got the cover off, got it washed up a little bit, spilled a bunch of grease on the floor, cleaned up a mess. The tag says it should be a 327 gear. If I'm not greatly mistaken, that's what that should mean, and that's probably right. It looks like 11 to 36. If you divide 36 by 11, that's like right at 3.3. So I did count the gears on the teeth on the, I haven't counted the ones on the ring. I've counted the ones on the pinion, and it was 11, so I'm assuming that's probably right. That is a little higher than I was wanting to go with. I wanted to go with like a 342, but I think I'm going to try this. My original idea was to do overdrive and 411 gears, and that was what your car that came with the overdrive. You have 3-speed, and then you'd have an overdrive unit, and the overdrive was 6-to-1. The overdrive in my transmission is 8-to-1, I think. The overdrive is 0.6-to-1 in these cars if they had overdrive from the factory, but they'd have 411 gears if they had overdrive. So that's my concern, is having enough gear that it's not, that on the top end the motor doesn't have enough torque to keep pulling itself down the road at highway speeds properly, if that makes any sense. And I had run the numbers, and 342s would put first gear less than what it would be if it had 411s in the stock transmission, and overdrive just slightly more than what it would be if it had overdrive and the stock transmission, if any of that makes sense. If you want to get numbers and crunch numbers, and whenever I get to messing with the transmission, I'm gonna get the whiteboard up, and we'll post some numbers up in case y'all are interested in those later on. So now, if you've never taken a rear end apart, what you need to do is, and this is an open diff, it would be the same if this thing had the Ford locker in it. It would be exactly the same, but it's just an open differential. I don't need a locker. I mean, the car has 100 horsepower. So, I mean, the motor makes 100 horsepower. So, to take this apart, you have a bolt that runs through the cross pin. And I may not, nope. I'm going to have to get something else. I'll be right back. Alright guys, I finally come up with something to do this. Although I don't know how I'm going to hold a hammer into it. Hammer. I loosened it already. I used the ball socket. Apparently the wrench that I had was worn out. The 5/16 wrench, and 5/16 or 8mm is what fits this. Alright, and when you take this bolt out, sometimes these break, so you have to be careful. If you have come across yours is broken, you need to get a new one. That it'll break right at the threads and be a pain in the butt. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this by hand. What I normally do is I will get this thing, the cross pin sliding out, and so that I don't get the cross pin too far out, I will either turn it up or turn it down in the car and just wedge it. Like take your pinion and wedge it in there where it won't slip out. Because if you try if you turn this with this pin out, it'll roll. These are called the side gears, and these are your spider gears. And what will happen is you'll roll those gears out, and then you have to line all that stuff back up. And it's not that complicated, but you know, if you keep it all together, it's a whole lot more simple. And to get it out, get that C-clip out, you just push the axle in. See, the axle won't come in with with your pin in the way, and the clip fell out. And we will push the right side axle, and the hammer will fall on the floor that we were using for a spacer. Anyway, so basically those just fall out, and they will fall out in the bottom. And that's what holds your axle in. If y'all have never, I'm gonna drop it in a bucket of oil. That's all that holds the axle in. It sits in a focus. It sits in a groove on the end of the axle. So I'm gonna pull the axles out, and then I'll come back. All right, guys, I got the. Went ahead and got the backing plates took off. It's self-explanatory. There's 4 screws on either end. They're going to need to be cleaned up. I dropped it on the floor earlier and bent that one, but I think I can repair it fairly easy. So that's basically all that's going to be in this video. Is going to be part 1. I've waited, kind of messed around and waited too late today to get started. So what I'm going to do for Wednesday's video, get the axle tubes cleaned up, get these pads cut off. I was originally going to keep these pads for the sway bar, because I had thought about trying to use the Explorer sway bar in it, but I'm going to run a Watts link instead of a Panhard bar. So I'm afraid that a sway bar here is going to get in the way. So I'm probably going to look at using a sway bar for like a 63 Chevy truck. And since we're using that, I know they make one. They were available. I'm not sure what I'm going to use as of yet. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So a few things about this. This rear end has a sensor for the speed sensor. I'm not sure if this year runs the speedometer. Probably ran off of this speed sensor, so that's for the ABS and the speedometer potentially on this. I'm not sure. I know my Ranger, the speedometer was a chain, so you know, you don't need this, but we're gonna have to leave it in there to keep this plugged off. So, and also I'm gonna go ahead and replace the seals. I may put some axle bearings in it while we're at it. If you look at the axle sitting on the floor, you can see that the left side axle is longer. I've actually got plans for that left side axle coming up in the future. I meant to talk about it today. Earlier today I did a video about lighting the forge, but in the future I want to make a body hammer, and axles are chrome mollies. It means it's 4140, probably 4340, 4140. So I'm going to use that axle and make a body hammer to work on the car with. I think that'll be cool. But I'll have a video about that. And like I said, I'm going to go on and say this is going to be a 3-part series. This first part was just tear down and prepare to cut the tabs off. Tomorrow I'm going to set the axle up in some sort of way where I can work on it. And I'm going to cut those tabs off, go ahead and clean the tubes up as much as I possibly can. And I may go ahead and cut the section out of that axle, but I cannot put it back together yet. I need 2 pieces of channel iron to help line it up, and when we get towards welding it back together, I'll show you how that works. But anyway, that's going to be it for today. I appreciate everybody that watches, likes, comments. Thank y'all for coming along for the ride, and hopefully on Wednesday you'll see this rear end getting prepared to be cut down, and then hopefully next Sunday it'll be getting put back, well, welded back together. I may go ahead and order the seals and pull the pinion out and do that too while I'm this far along. We'll just see where it takes us tomorrow. Anyway, y'all have a good week.